Boom. Hey, internets. Wanted to kind of get into this subject, which was asked from me via email through the channel. So you guys can email me as well and follow me on social media. That would be great. And you can get your questions to me that way. You could also drop comments on any of the videos from my channel. So let's get into it. I touch on this only by ways of sharing stories in reference to answering other people's questions. But I've always had more of a love for style than fashion. And I've always been interested in owning business, owning like media companies or companies that had to do with young professionals and young energy, maybe entertainment sort of. And so all of that led me towards my career in fashion. As some of you might know, I met a designer when I was 18. I had just come out of high school and it changed my life. He had flown from New York to California in order to run the clothing company at the time that was owned by the original owners of DC Shoes. There's some history there, and I shout out Aliyasha all the time. Still a huge reference in fashion today. Iconic, I'd say. In any case, that kind of set me off into running into this entire direction of working in men's ready-to-wear casual. And so starting clothing lines. The first clothing line I started was on my own. It was a t-shirt line, and the whole purpose of the line was so that I could learn my graphic design programs. So as I talk about on this channel, we use Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop, two industry standard design programs for anything in graphic design and in media. So we're talking about the mid to late 90s, okay? And I couldn't afford a computer at the time, so I was taking college classes in Adobe Illustrator so I could have access to the computer, and also secondary learn the program. But I already had the leverage to want to learn because I wanted it to be my career. And I found out apparel designers who work in mass production don't work behind a dress form. We work behind a computer screen, which has been super advantageous in the rise of technology. Also in just freelancing and doing graphic design and being able to handle design on my own. So knew I want to be a clothing brand owner in the future. Wanted to work in the industry for at least 5 to 10 years. So the first clothing line I made, I was 18. It was called Phive, Phive. There was no meaning to it. I just wanted to pick a name that looked different. The word fat was in at the time, PHAT, like everyone used that as the word cool, was fat. And so it was skate and hip hop inspired in terms graphically. But you know, if I look at it now, it's just very simple. And so I sold it to kids at the high school. I kind of had reps in high school. They were like my sales reps, and then I would give them bonuses for signing kids up for t-shirts, and that's how I'd get my basis for the orders. I'd make the order with a screen printer and literally hand it out from like sort of my trunk, and then collect cash, and it was actually a pretty good running business when I was 18, 19, 20, in and around that age range. So that was only a portfolio piece. And when I got my first job working at the skate company at Osiris, the owner of the company actually offered to launch it as a full business and partner up on it. And I was like a kid. By the time I got that first job, I think I was 21, right around there. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing in business, so I want to learn. I want to work in the industry. Let's see. There's a lot of meetings that I had while I worked in the industry where people would want me to be a part of a business as a designer. But as some of you might know, if you're the designer and other people are bringing something else, like let's say photography to the table, unless you're bringing money to the table to start up a brand, the designer is going to do like, I want to say 90%, but a huge amount of the heavy lifting in the beginning, because you're going to design the styles, you're going to design the assets for web. So any kind of, if you build out a website, you need web covers, web banners, You're gonna need to superimpose the graphics on images of a t-shirt and a hat, and then just the images to sell the lifestyle of the brand. All of that, for the most part, is going to come down to the graphic designer or the slash designer, and you're also designing the SKUs for the line, which won't be a lot in the beginning, a lot of different garments, but in totality, in the launch of the first like year, let's say, you're going to be doing a lot of work. So the first couple companies that I was pitched to become a designer on the team, a lot of times weren't appealing because the money was limited, and I knew the kind of money that it took to launch successfully. And then sometimes they just fizzled out. Like, people started talking. It would usually be like a sales rep from a established company. I have the accounts, you have the design. We'd bring another person in and that sort of things. But they'd end up being kind of loose arrangements. I took a stab at a t-shirt line called XD, which was a side thing that I wanted to see could become bigger, and that was that was a loss. I'm laughing about it now, but I actually partnered with a production manager from the first screen printing shop that I worked at, and so if you guys go back and know that I owned a high volume screen printing shop, my partner in that venture was my boss at the time. At that original screen printing shop where I worked at, and so the sales manager who I worked with, I partnered with her, and so I made some graphics, and then I put all the money into it. That was a loss, not a huge loss, but I set my stop loss, as I talk about a lot. Like, I set a stop loss of how much I'm willing to devote to the project, both money and time, and I hit the limit of both of those, and then I just kind of did my math, forecasting what was going to happen. The idea that everyone had in terms of what sell-through was going to be did not exist. It was not there. I did not see proof of concept, so I bailed from that. Or I stopped the project because it was my money, and so I was both the designer and funding the venture, so that fizzled out. But that was really like a side project. And then prior to that, you guys know, in and around 2007, I went all in. I was about 27 at the time, and I went all in on Jon Phenom as a brand, and it was a denim company. And then, but I did everything. I had jackets, button downs. I didn't do any other bottoms. Just 4 or 5 different SKUs of denim over 2 seasons. Okay, and so I put somewhere in and around the ballpark of $80,000 into that business, and it did not. It didn't make it. It didn't make it for a number of reasons. I always reference the mortgage crunch, which started and really made it almost impossible to flourish, because we were getting a lot of good looks from retail. Retail loved it. I mean, the retail that ordered loved it. And I knew if I could kind of get through that sliver, that window, that we can maybe extend the life of it and then flourish. But it was a really thin window to pull through. I mean, a lot of brands flourished at that time. Crooks and Castles launched at about that time. Hundreds was already going strong and made it through that time, and they do Ben and Bobby do amazing to this day. So there was a lot of companies, or there's not. I should say there's companies that won, but a vast majority of companies who are already doing millions and doing well at that time also just kind of ate it. So for a brand new company in the block, a lot of companies met the fate that I did, where by the time they met the buyers, they were unwilling to try a new brand at that time. But a lot of things were my fault as well, and so it was a huge learning. That was like a master's in business fashion for me in 2007 to about 2010, I'd say. Rough pill to swallow, but got a lot of learning from those failures, or that data, or that feedback, if you will. And so and that's in and around the time I launched this YouTube channel that you guys are watching. So it's given me a breadth of knowledge, that from the point of person who's willing to stake it all. So not only have I worked with companies on that side for right around 20 years now as we're shooting this, but the entrepreneurial side is very much alive in me. And so you guys know, if you're subscribed to the channel, you know that I continue to both do design and then do consulting for new ventures. So just want to give you guys a little bit of my past of me going all in on a clothing company. But yeah, when I went in on the Jon Phenom line, I stayed in Hong Kong and southern China for a total of 6 weeks in that time, just meeting with the vendors, making sure everything was everything. I attended 2 trade shows in Vegas and paid for that. I went to retail. I flew out to make meetings with retail that had a good amount of doors just so I could meet the face-to-face, knowing that they might not have a buy for me. I just want to establish the relationship at least. So doing everything, crunching the numbers, fulfillment as I was selling online also for during that time. So yeah, those are some of the ventures that fueled me into the knowledge base that I have today. And then after that time in 2007, again, you guys know that I was from that point on, I was pretty much getting offered jobs as director. So Arisu, I was the creative director. As of late, I was the brand director, almost running pretty much everything at Boulevard Supply here in LA. Okay, and then I'm now continuing to work with a lot of different companies, and I'm working really closely with a startup venture. I would say the last 3 years they started, and I actually met them through this YouTube channel. So you'll hear more about my adventures with them and being able to fuse my knowledge into maybe helping them get to the next level. We'll see. That really hopeful for that. In any case, someone asked about it. That's just a little bit of my background in going in on starting clothing lines, especially if you're new to the channel. That's a lot about me in terms of my background, aside from just working with companies since 2000. Hope that helps. Questions, drop them all down below, or you can email me, as I said in the beginning of the video. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.